Welcome to the deep dive. Sometimes we just go about our day and don't really think about it, but our body, it's just incredible. Like this super complex machine that's always working.
It really is, just constantly running in the background, keeping everything balanced, keeping us, well, us.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today. We're taking a look at the core ideas of human anatomy and physiology.
Right. We've got some pretty comprehensive sources here, stuff that can look a bit dense, like a textbook. But our mission really is to pull out the key stuff, the surprising bits, the connections. We want to help you actually grasp how your own body works kind of quickly and hopefully make it stick.
Think of it as the highlights reel, but, with context. We want to show you the amazing engineering without getting bogged down in every single detail.
Precisely. Let's get into it.
Okay, so if we're thinking about the body as this amazing machine, where do we even start? Like, what are the absolute basics?
Good question. It all builds up, There's a hierarchy. You start super small with molecules.
Molecules, okay, like water, oxygen, that kind of thing.
Exactly. The basic chemical stuff. Then those molecules come together to form cells. And cells are, critically, the smallest living units.
Okay. So molecules aren't alive, but cells are.
Right. And then you get groups of similar cells working together, and that forms tissues.
Tissues, like muscle tissue or skin tissue.
Perfect examples. Then different types of tissues combine to make an organ, like your heart or your liver.
Got it.
And finally, you have several organs that cooperate on a bigger job. And that's an organ system, like the digestive system or the nervous system. It's like building with blocks, small pieces make bigger pieces, which make even bigger structures.
That makes sense. So going back to cells, you said they're the smallest living units. Are they all pretty much the same?
Oh, not at all. That's what's so fascinating. They're incredibly diverse. Think about it. A nerve cell needs to be long and thin to send signals. A muscle cell needs to be able to contract.
Right.
A fat cell is designed for storage. A bone cell helps build structure. They're specialized, each perfectly suited for its specific job.
And inside a single cell, what's going on? What are the key parts? You mentioned it's like its own little world.
It really is. You've got the main jelly-like filling, the cytoplasm, where all the tiny organs of the cell, the organelles, do your work.
Okay.
Then there's the outer boundary, the cell membrane. It's super important because it controls what gets in and out, like nutrients coming in, waste going out. It's selectively permeable.
Like a gatekeeper.
Exactly. And then, usually right in the middle, you have the nucleus. That's the control center. It holds the DNA.
DNA, the genetic blueprint.
That's the one. It's the instruction manual for everything the cell does, and it's what carries the genetic information that makes you uniquely you.
Okay, so we have all these levels, molecules, cells, tissues, organs, systems. It's incredibly complex. How does it all stay, stable? Things must be constantly changing.
That's the million-dollar question. And the answer is a concept called homeostasis. It's a fundamental principle.
Homeostasis sounds important.
It is. It basically means maintaining the same condition or keeping in balance. Your body is constantly working automatically to keep internal conditions within a very narrow, ideal range.
Like what kind of condition?
Well, think about your body temperature. It likes to stay right around 98.6 Fahrenheit or 37 Celsius. That's a set point. Same for your blood pressure, blood sugar levels, oxygen levels. The body has ideal targets it's always striving for.
So if something pushes it off balance, say I walk into a really hot room.
Right. Your body immediately detects that change, and it kicks in mechanisms to bring you back to that set point. This is usually done through something called negative feedback.
Negative feedback.
How does that work?
It sounds negative, but it's actually how the body corrects things. So in your hot room example, sensors detect the rising temperature. Your brain gets the message and tells your sweat glands to start working.
Sweating cools me down. Exactly. The sweating cools your skin, lowering your body temperature back towards the set point. Or if you walk into a freezing cold room, the opposite happens. You start shivering.
To generate heat.
Right. Shivering is muscle activity that generates heat, warming you up. Both are negative feedback. The response counteracts the initial change.
That's clever. It's like an internal thermostat.
Precisely.
What about really fast reactions, like, touching something scorching hot and pulling your hand away before you even realize it?
Yes. That's a reflex, a classic example. It's an automatic, super fast response designed for protection.
So it doesn't involve conscious thought?
Not initially. No, it's too fast for that. When you touch that hot fire, sensors in your finger scream pain, heat.
Okay.
That signal travels instantly along sensory nerves up to your spinal cord.
Just the spinal cord, not the brain.
The spinal cord acts like a relay station for these emergencies. It interprets the danger message and immediately sends a command back down through motor nerves,
Telling the muscles.
telling the muscles in your arm and hand to contract now. And boom, your hand is pulled away. It's only after that fraction of a second that the message might fully register in your brain as, ouch, that was hot.
Wow. So reflexes are like the body's emergency response system.
You got it. And this negative feedback principle, it's not just for temperature. It regulates nutrients, blood sugar, oxygen, hormones, all sorts of things.
You mentioned nerves sending messages really fast, like the reflex.
Right.
Are there other ways the body sends signals?
Yes, definitely. Those nerve signals using electrical impulses are like sending an email super fast, direct.
Okay.
But the body also uses hormones. Hormones are chemical messengers released into the bloodstream. Think of that as more like sending a letter through the mail.
Slower, but maybe reaches more places.
Exactly. Hormones travel through the blood so they can affect many different organs and tissues, and their effects often last longer. A great example is insulin regulating blood sugar after you eat. It's a slower, more sustained adjustment compared to a nerve reflex.
So fast emails and slower letters, both working to keep things running smoothly.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay, this balancing act is incredible. Now let's talk about the structures that physically protect us and hold us together, starting with the outside our skin.
Right, the integumentary system, which is basically your skin, hair, nails, and various glands within the skin. It's your first line of defense against, well, everything.
It looks pretty simple, but I guess it's more complex than it seems.
Oh, absolutely. Skin has 3 main layers or regions. The outermost one is the epidermis. It's made of tough, tightly packed cells, and the very top layer contains keratin,
Keratin, like in hair and nails.
the same stuff. It makes the epidermis waterproof and pretty resistant to damage, keeps the good stuff in, bad stuff out.
And below that.
Below that is the dermis. This is where you find blood vessels, nerve endings, hair follicles, sweat glands, oil glands. It's a busy layer.
Okay.
And then underneath the dermis is the hypodermis, which is mostly fatty tissue. It acts as insulation, padding, and connects the skin to the underlying muscles.
What about skin color? What determines that?
That's mainly due to a pigment called melanin. Melanin is produced by special cells in the epidermis. Its main job, actually, is to protect the deeper layers of skin from damage by the sun's ultraviolet, or UV, radiation.
Or like a natural sunscreen?
Pretty much. But, sometimes those skin cells can start multiplying uncontrollably, especially with too much sun exposure over time, and that's what leads to skin cancer.
Right. And you mentioned glands in the dermis, like sweat glands.
Yes, sweat glands are coiled tubes that produce sweat, mostly water, but also some salts and waste products like urea. When sweat evaporates from your skin, it cools you down. That's crucial for regulating body temperature.
And the oil glands.
Those are sebaceous glands. They're usually attached to hair follicles, and they produce an oily substance called sebum. Sebum lubricates the hair and skin, preventing them from drying out.
So skin is protection, waterproofing, and temperature control.
And sensation. Don't forget all those nerve endings. It's a remarkable organ. And that temperature control, it's largely orchestrated by the hypothalamus in your brain. The body's main thermostat we mentioned earlier, it can trigger sweating when you're hot or shivering when you're cold.
Okay, moving inward from the skin, what provides our actual structure, the framework?
That would be the skeletal system,
Hmm?
your bones. And they do way more than just hold you up.
Oh yeah, like what?
Well, support is obvious. Protection is huge. Think of your skull protecting your brain or your ribs protecting your heart and lungs.
Sure.
They're essential for movement because muscles attach to bones and use them like levers. But here's something cool. Your bones are also a major storage site for minerals, especially calcium.
Calcium. So they're like a calcium bank.
Exactly. If your blood calcium levels drop too low, your body can withdraw calcium from your bones. If levels get too high, it can deposit excess calcium back into the bones.
How does it manage that?
2 key hormones are involved. Calcitonin, from the thyroid gland, lowers blood calcium by stimulating bone deposition. And parathyroid hormone, or PTH, from the tiny parathyroid glands, raises blood calcium by encouraging bone breakdown. They work in opposition to keep calcium levels just right.
Wow. Okay, so support, protection, movement, mineral storage.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yes. Blood cell formation. Deep inside many bones, in the bone marrow, is where your red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets are made.
That's incredible. Bones are busy.
Very busy. And they're not just static structures, they're living tissue, constantly being broken down and rebuilt.
Now, bones need to connect to each other and to muscles. What handles that?
Right. We have accessory structures. There's cartilage, which is a firm but flexible tissue. You find it cushioning the ends of bones and joints, and it makes up your nose and ears.
Okay.
Then you have ligaments. These are tough, fibrous bands that connect bone directly to bone. They help stabilize joints.
Ligaments. Bone to bone.
Got it. And tendons connect muscle to bone. They transmit the force generated by muscle contraction to move the bones.
Tendons. Muscle to bone. Right.
So where bones meet, we call that a joint or an articulation.
And are all joints movable?
No, there's a range. Some are completely immovable, like the sutures between the plates of your skull. They fuse together for strength.
Makes sense for protecting the brain.
Definitely.
Mhm.
Then you have slightly movable joints, and finally, freely movable joints, which are the ones we usually think about, like your knee, shoulder, elbow. These are called synovial joints.
Synovial. Why that name?
Because they have a cavity filled with synovial fluid. It's like lubricating oil, allowing the bones to glide smoothly against each other with very little friction.
That's why we can bend our knees so easily.
Exactly. But these joints can wear out or get damaged. Osteoarthritis is very common, especially as people age. It's basically the wear and tear type, where the cartilage cushioning the bone ends gradually breaks down, causing pain and stiffness. And then there's rheumatoid arthritis. This one's different. It's an autoimmune disease. The body's own immune system mistakenly attacks the lining of the joints, leading to inflammation, pain, and sometimes significant joint damage and deformity.
It sounds rough.
It can be very debilitating.
Okay, let's focus for a sec on the core structure. The axial skeleton. That's the trunk, head, and neck, right?
That's right. The main component is the vertebral column, or spine. It's made up of 33 individual bones called vertebrae, stacked on top of each other. It protects the spinal cord and supports the head.
And the ribs.
You have 12 pairs of ribs. They curve around from the back, protecting your heart and lungs. Most of them attach at the front to the sternum, which is your breastbone. It forms a protective cage.
A very vital cage. All right, we've got the protective layers and the internal framework. Now, how do we actually make things happen? How do we move?
That's the job of the muscular system. Muscles are the engines of the body. They're specialized organs designed for one main thing: contraction.
So how does a muscle actually contract? What's happening inside?
If you zoom way in, a muscle is made of bundles of long cells called muscle fibers. Inside these fibers are even smaller structures called myofibrils.
Okay.
And the myofibrils contain the actual contractile proteins, tiny filaments called actin and myosin. When a muscle gets the signal to contract, the myosin filaments grab onto the actin filaments and pull them closer together.
Like they're rowing.
That's a great analogy. Thousands of these tiny oars pulling simultaneously causes the entire muscle fiber, and thus the whole muscle, to shorten or contract.
And that pulling force is transferred to the bones via...
Via tendons. Remember, tendons connect muscle to bone. So when your bicep contracts, its tendon pulls on your forearm bone, bending your elbow. The Achilles tendon connecting your calf muscle to your heel bone is another classic example.
Right, and ligaments are bone to bone for stability.
Exactly. And if you injure a ligament, overstretch it, or tear it, that's called a sprain, like a sprained ankle.
Got it. So muscles contract, tendons pull bones, ligaments stabilize joints. But how does the muscle know when to contract? Who's sending the signal?
Now we're getting into the control system. That's the nervous system. It's the body's high-speed communication network.
High speed is right, thinking back to that reflex.
Absolutely. The main messengers are specialized cells called neurons, or nerve cells. Think of them as living electrical wires.
And they transmit signals really fast.
They can, especially if they have insulation. Many neurons are wrapped in a fatty layer called the myelin sheath. This sheath acts like the insulation on an electrical wire, preventing the signal from leaking out and forcing it to jump between gaps in the sheath.
Which makes it go faster.
Much faster. It's like an express train compared to a local one stopping at every station.
Okay, so neurons are the wires. What are the main bundles of wires?
We talk about nerves. You have cranial nerves, 12 pairs that come directly out of the brain. They handle things like vision, the optic nerve, eye movement, facial expressions, taste, hearing, a lot of sensory and motor functions for the head and neck.
12 pairs from the brain.
Yeah. And then you have spinal nerves, 31 pairs that branch off from the spinal cord and go out to the rest of your body, carrying signals to and from your trunk and limbs.
How does the nervous system get information from the world, like light or sound?
Through sensory receptors. These are specialized nerve endings or cells located in your sense organs. Eyes, ears, skin, tongue, nose. They're designed to detect specific stimuli like light photons hitting your eye or pressure on your skin or chemicals for taste and smell.
And those receptors send signals through the neurons.
Yes. For example, in your eye, you have light-sensitive cells called rods and cones. When light hits them, they generate a signal. Sometimes, if the cones aren't working properly, specifically the ones for color, that can lead to color blindness.
I see. And when a signal reaches the end of one neuron, how does it get to the next one, or to a muscle?
It has to cross a tiny gap called a synapse. It's like a junction. The first neuron releases chemical messengers called neurotransmitters into that gap.
Chemicals, not electrical.
The signal within the neuron is electrical, but the signal between neurons across the synapse is usually chemical, carried by these neurotransmitters. They drift across the gap and bind to receptors on the next cell, triggering a new signal there.
Fascinating. So all these signals, sensory information coming in, motor commands going out. Where's the main processing center, the big boss?
That would be the brain, part of the central nervous system, CNS, along with the spinal cord. Protected by the skull, the brain is where interpretation, thought, memory, emotions, and conscious decisions happen. It's incredibly complex.
I bet. What's it made of?
Broadly, you can distinguish between gray matter and white matter. Gray matter consists mostly of no-on cell bodies, dendrites, and unmyelinated axons. This is where the processing happens. White matter is mostly myelinated axons, the insulated wires transmitting signals between different areas of gray matter and to the rest of the body.
Okay. And the brain has different parts, right?
Oh, yes. Major regions with specialized functions. The largest part, by far, is the cerebrum. This is the seat of conscious thought, learning, memory, personality. It's where you interpret sensory input hearing, vision, touch, taste, smell, and initiate voluntary movements. It's also heavily involved in emotions.
The wrinkly part on top.
That's the one. It's divided into 4 main sections or lobes on each side. The frontal lobe is key for planning, problem solving, and motor control. The temporal lobe on the side is crucial for hearing and memory. The parietal lobe, kind of top back, handles sensory interpretation like touch and spatial awareness. And the occipital lobe at the very back is dedicated to processing visual information.
Wow. So much going on in the cerebrum. What else is there?
Tucked underneath the back of the cerebrum is the cerebellum. It looks like a smaller version of the cerebrum, sometimes called the little brain. Its main job is coordination, balance, and posture. It fine-tunes movements initiated by the cerebrum, making them smooth and precise.
So important for athletes, musicians. Anyone who needs fine motor control.
Absolutely. Then, deeper inside, you have the diencephalon. This includes 2 really important structures. The thalamus acts like a central relay station. Almost all sensory information heading to the cerebrum passes through the thalamus first, where it's sorted and directed.
Like a switchboard operator.
Good analogy. And below the thalamus is the hypothalamus. We mentioned it controls temperature, but it does so much more. It regulates hunger, thirst, blood pressure, sleep-wake cycles. It's the main control center for homeostasis. It also links the nervous system to the endocrine system via the pituitary gland.
The pituitary gland, that sounds familiar.
It's often called the master gland of the endocrine system because it produces hormones that control many other hormone-producing glands throughout the body, and it's directly controlled by the hypothalamus.
So the hypothalamus is really pulling a lot of strings.
It really is. Also nearby is the pineal gland. This tiny gland produces the hormone melatonin, which helps regulate our sleep-wake cycles and our sense of the passage of time, our internal body clock.
Incredible complexity. And when things go wrong in the brain, like with neuron damage.
That can lead to serious conditions. For example, Alzheimer's disease involves the progressive loss of neurons, particularly in areas related to memory and cognition, leading to gradual memory loss and other cognitive impairments.
Okay, so we've covered structure, movement, and control. But this whole machine needs fuel, right? How do we process the food we eat?
The digestive system. It's essentially a long tube running through your body with some accessory organs helping out. It starts obviously in the oral cavity or mouth.
Where we chew food.
Right. Chewing breaks it down mechanically. Your teeth are specialized. Incisors for cutting, canines for tearing, premolars and molars for grinding. Your tongue helps manipulate the food and contains taste buds. And salivary glands secrete saliva.
Saliva does more than just moisten food, doesn't it?
It does. It contains enzymes that start the chemical digestion of carbohydrates right there in your mouth, and it helps form the food into a ball called a bolus for swallowing.
And taste buds. What can we actually taste?
We have receptors for 5 basic tastes: sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami.
Umami. What's that?
It's often described as savory or deliciousness. It's associated with glutamate, an amino acid found in protein-rich foods like meat and cheese. It was recognized as the 5th basic taste relatively recently, maybe the 1980s.
Interesting. Okay, so after the mouth.
Food goes down the pharynx, the throat, and then the esophagus, a muscular tube that pushes the food down to the stomach using wave-like contractions.
And the stomach, just a holding bag.
Much more than that. The stomach churns the food, mixing it with strong acid and enzymes that primarily start breaking down proteins.
Okay, acid and enzymes. Then where?
Then the partially digested food moves into the small intestine, and this is where the magic of absorption really happens.
Absorption of nutrients.
Exactly. The small intestine is incredibly long, about 6 meters or 20 feet coiled up. Its inner lining has millions of tiny finger-like projections called villi, which vastly increase the surface area for absorbing nutrients, carbohydrates, fats, proteins, vitamins, minerals into the bloodstream.
20 feet. Wow. That's where most digestion and absorption happens then.
The vast majority, yes. What's left then moves into the large intestine, where mostly water is absorbed, and the remaining indigestible material is formed into feces for elimination.
You mentioned accessory organs helping out.
Right. These aren't part of the main tube, but they secrete vital substances. The liver, a huge organ, produces bile, which is essential for digesting fats.
Bile. Isn't that stored somewhere?
Yes, in the gallbladder, a small pouch tucked under the liver. It stores and concentrates bile, releasing it into the small intestine when you eat fatty foods.
What happens if something goes wrong there, like gallstones?
Gallstones are hardened deposits of bile components, like cholesterol or bilirubin. They can form in the gallbladder and sometimes block the bile ducts, causing severe pain, especially after a fatty meal.
Ouch. Okay, liver makes bile, gallbladder stores it. What else?
The pancreas is another crucial accessory organ. It produces powerful digestive enzymes that break down carbohydrates, fats, and proteins in the small intestine. It also has an endocrine function, producing hormones like insulin and glucagon that regulate blood sugar.
Ah, insulin again. So the pancreas does double duty.
It does, digestive and hormonal.
And sometimes things go wrong with digestion, like diarrhea.
Right. Diarrhea basically happens when food moves through the intestines, particularly the small intestine, too quickly. This means there isn't enough time for sufficient water to be absorbed back into the body, resulting in loose, watery stools.
Okay, so the body takes in nutrients. What about getting rid of the waste products generated by all this activity? Not just digestive waste, but metabolic waste from the cells.
That's the job of the urinary system. Its main organs are the 2 kidneys, located on either side of your spine, kind of towards your back.
Kidneys filter the blood.
That's their primary role, yes. They filter waste products, excess water, and salts out of your blood to produce urine. They're incredibly efficient filters.
How do they actually do the filtering?
The workhorse unit inside the kidney is called the nephron. Each kidney contains about 1 million of these microscopic filtering units.
1 million nephrons per kidney. Wow.
Yep. Each nephron has a couple of key parts. There's the glomerulus, which is a tiny ball of capillaries where blood is filtered under pressure. Surrounding it is Bowman's capsule, which collects the filtered fluid. This fluid then flows through a long, winding renal tubule.
And what happens in the tubule?
As the fluid moves through the tubule, the body selectively reabsorbs the useful stuff it wants to keep, like water, glucose, essential ions, back into the blood. The remaining fluid, containing the waste products and excess substances, becomes urine.
So it's not just filtering out, it's also taking back the good stuff.
Exactly. It's a very precise process. And kidneys do more than just filter waste. They produce a hormone called erythropoietin, or EPO, which stimulates the bone marrow to make red blood cells.
Connecting back to the skeletal system.
Right. And they also activate vitamin D, which is important for calcium absorption.
So really multitasking.
They are. And they play a massive role in maintaining blood volume and blood pressure, another key part of homeostasis.
How do they manage blood volume?
By controlling how much water is reabsorbed from the filtrate. Hormones help here. For example, antidiuretic hormone, ADH, released from the pituitary gland, tells the kidneys to reabsorb more water. making the urine more concentrated and conserving body water. This happens when you're dehydrated.
Okay.
Another hormone system involving renin, produced by the kidneys themselves, ultimately helps increase blood volume and pressure when needed, like after blood loss or dehydration. So if you rapidly drink a lot of liquid, your kidneys will work to excrete the excess water. If you're sweating heavily or lose blood, they'll work hard to conserve water.
So after the kidneys make urine, where does it go?
It flows down two tubes called the ureters to the urinary bladder. The bladder is a muscular sac that stores urine. It can stretch quite a bit, holding up to maybe a liter.
A liter. That's quite a lot.
It is. Then, when you urinate, the urine exits the body through another tube called the urethra.
And sometimes things can go wrong here too, like kidney stones.
Yes, kidney stones are hard crystals that form in the urine, usually made of calcium salts. They can be extremely painful if they get stuck in the ureters. And in severe cases, if the kidneys stop working altogether, that's renal failure, which requires dialysis or kidney transplant to filter the blood artificially.
We've covered how the body maintains itself, fuels itself, cleans itself. But what about the continuation of life? Reproduction.
Right, the reproductive system. Its fundamental purpose, obviously, is to produce offspring. The male and female systems are quite different, but both are designed to produce specialized sex cells, or gametes, and facilitate their union.
Let's start with the male system.
Okay, the primary male reproductive organs are the testes, singular.testes. These are where sperm, the male gametes, are produced. They also produce the main male hormone, testosterone.
And they're located outside the main body cavity.
Yes, within the scrotum. This is important because sperm production requires a temperature slightly lower than core body temperature. The scrotum helps regulate that temperature.
Okay, where exactly are sperm made in the testes?
Inside the testes are tightly coiled tubes called seminiferous tubules. That's the sperm factory. Once produced, sperm move into the epididymis, another coiled tube structure attached to the testes where they mature and are stored.
So testes make them, epididymis stores them. How do they get out?
During ejaculation, sperm travel from the epididymis through a tube called the vas deferens, or ductus deferens, then join with secretions from accessory glands, the seminal vesicles, prostate gland, and bulbourethral glands. These secretions nourish and protect the sperm and form the fluid component of semen. The semen then travels through the urethra and out of the body.
Okay, and sometimes there could be issues like impotence.
Right. Impotence or erectile dysfunction is the inability to achieve or maintain an erection sufficient for intercourse. It can have various causes, sometimes physical, like problems with blood circulation or nerve supply, and sometimes psychological, like anxiety. Thankfully, there are often effective treatments available now.
Okay. Now, the female system.
The primary female organs are the ovaries. Like the testes, they produce the gametes in this case, ova, or eggs, and also the main female hormones, estrogen and progesterone.
And where are the ovaries located?
They're inside the pelvic cavity. Near the ovaries are the fallopian tubes, or uterine tubes. These tubes capture the egg when it's released from the ovary. Importantly, fertilization when sperm meets egg usually happens within the fallopian tube.
Okay, so fertilization happens in the tube. Then what?
The fertilized egg, or zygote, then travels down the fallopian tube to the uterus. The uterus is a muscular organ, often described as pear-shaped, where the fetus develops during pregnancy. The lower, narrow part of the uterus is the cervix, which opens into the vagina, the canal that leads to the outside of the body.
The female system involves cycles, right? The menstrual cycle.
Yes, it's quite complex. There are actually two interconnected cycles happening roughly every 28 days. The ovarian cycle concerns the development and release of the egg from the ovary. The menstrual cycle, or uterine cycle, involves the changes in the lining of the uterus to prepare for a possible pregnancy.
Tell me more about the ovarian cycle. How does an egg develop?
It starts with follicles developing within the ovary. Usually one follicle matures fully each cycle. Around day 14, ovulation occurs. The mature egg is released from the ovary. The remnant of the follicle then becomes the corpus luteum, which produces hormones. The eggs themselves, the oocytes, are produced through a special type of cell division called meiosis, which halves the number of chromosomes.
Halves the chromosomes. Why?
So that when the egg, with half the chromosomes, is fertilized by a sperm, also with half, the resulting zygote has the full, correct number of chromosomes.
Clever. And the menstrual cycle syncs up with this.
Yes. Hormones from the ovarian cycle, mainly estrogen and progesterone, cause the uterine lining to thicken and prepare to receive a fertilized egg. If fertilization doesn't happen, hormone levels drop, and the thickened lining is shed. That shedding is menstruation, or a period.
So menstruation is the body basically resetting for the next cycle if pregnancy didn't occur.
Exactly, and there can be issues related to these cycles. Endometriosis is a condition where tissue similar to the uterine lining grows outside the uterus, which can cause pain and infertility. And PMS, or premenstrual syndrome, refers to a collection of physical and emotional symptoms that many women experience in the days leading up to menstruation.
Okay, so if fertilization does happen in the fallopian tube,
Then the sperm and egg fuse to form a zygote. This single cell starts dividing rapidly as it travels towards the uterus, where it will implant in the uterine wall and begin developing into an embryo and then a fetus.
what if it implants somewhere else, like in the tube?
That's called an ectopic pregnancy. It's dangerous because the fallopian tube isn't designed to hold a growing embryo and can rupture, causing severe bleeding. It requires immediate medical attention.
And twins, how do they happen?
You can get identical twins if a single fertilized egg splits into two separate embryos early on. They share the exact same DNA. Fraternal twins occur if the woman releases two separate eggs during ovulation and both are fertilized by different sperm. They're genetically like regular siblings.
Got it. Now, reproduction also brings up the topic of sexually transmitted diseases, or STDs. The sources mention several.
Yes, it's an important health consideration. The sources list several common ones. For instance, human immunodeficiency virus, HIV, which causes AIDS. It's a virus that attacks the immune system, leading to flu-like symptoms initially and eventually making the person highly susceptible to infections.
Okay.
Chlamydia is caused by bacteria. It often causes vaginal or penile discharge, and if untreated, it can lead to infertility, especially in women. Genital herpes is caused by a virus, leading to painful sores. Gonorrhea is another bacterial infection, often causing discharge.
Yeah.
Human papillomavirus, HPV, is very common. Some types cause genital warts, while others can lead to cervical cancer and other cancers. Syphilis is bacterial. It starts with a painless sore, but can progress to affect the nervous system and other organs if untreated. And trichomoniasis is caused by a parasite, often leading to vaginal discharge and itching. Prevention and early treatment are key for all STDs.
Okay, thanks for outlining those factually based on the sources. Now, we've mentioned hormones several times: insulin, estrogen, testosterone, PTH, calcitonin. There's a whole system dedicated to these chemical messengers, right?
Absolutely. That's the endocrine system. It consists of various glands located throughout the body that produce and secrete hormones directly into the bloodstream.
Unlike sweat glands, which have ducts.
Exactly. Endocrine glands are ductless. The hormones travel via the blood to target cells or organs elsewhere in the body, where they regulate a huge range of functions.
We already talked about the pituitary gland, the master gland, controlled by the hypothalamus, and producing things like growth hormone, GH.
Right, and the thyroid gland in the neck, which controls metabolism and produces calcitonin for calcium regulation.
And tucked behind the thyroid are the parathyroid glands, making PTH to raise calcium.
Correct. Then you have the adrenal glands sitting on top of the kidneys. They produce several hormones, including adrenaline, epinephrine, famous for the fight or flight response.
And the pancreas, doing double duty, producing digestive enzymes and hormones like insulin and glucagon to control blood sugar.
Precisely. Insulin lowers blood sugar. Glucagon raises it. They work together.
And the reproductive hormones.
Yes, the ovaries produce estrogen and progesterone, which regulate the female cycle and secondary sexual characteristics. The testes produce testosterone, responsible for male characteristics and sperm production.
So hormones are coordinating everything from growth and metabolism to stress responses and reproduction.
They really are the body's chemical communication network, often working alongside the nervous system.
And problems with these glands can cause issues, right? Like with the pancreas.
Yes. Pancreatitis is inflammation of the pancreas. It can be acute, sudden, or chronic, long-lasting, and is often linked to gallstones or excessive alcohol use. It can be very serious because it affects both digestion and hormone production.
And diabetes.
Diabetes mellitus is a major endocrine disorder. It's characterized by problems with insulin. Either the pancreas doesn't produce enough, type 1, or the body's cells don't respond properly to it, type 2. This leads to high blood sugar levels, which can damage many organs over time if not managed.
We've covered so much about the body's internal workings.
Yeah.
How do we actually experience the outside world? Our senses.
Right, the special senses. Taste, smell, vision, hearing, and equilibrium. Balance. Let's start with taste, or gustation.
That's the taste buds on the tongue.
Mostly, yes. Taste buds are clusters of specialized epithelial cells, mainly on the tongue, but also some on the roof of the mouth, pharynx, and even the epiglottis. They detect chemicals dissolved in saliva.
And we know the 5 basic tastes now. Sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and
Umami. That savory taste.
Okay, what about smell or olfaction? How does that work?
Smell receptors are located high up in your nasal cavity, in a patch of tissue called the olfactory epithelium. When you inhale, airborne chemicals dissolve in the mucus covering this epithelium.
The receptors detect them.
Yes, specialized olfactory sensory neurons detect these chemicals and send signals directly up to the olfactory bulb in the brain, just above the nasal cavity. From there, signals go to other brain areas involved in smell perception and memory. Smell is very closely linked to memory and emotion.
It is, isn't it?
Hmm.
Okay, moving on to vision. Our eyes are incredibly complex.
They truly are. First, you have accessory structures that protect and help the eye function. The orbit is the bony socket in the skull. Eyebrows help keep sweat out. Eyelids, palpebrae, act like windshield wipers, spreading tears and blinking to protect the eye. Eyelashes trigger blinking if something gets too close.
And tears.
Produced by the lacrimal apparatus. Tears lubricate the eye surface, wash away debris, and contain an enzyme called lysozyme that helps destroy bacteria.
And we can move our eyes around.
Thanks to 6 extrinsic eye muscles attached to the outside of the eyeball, allowing you to look up, down, side to side, and rotate your eyes.
Okay, now the eyeball itself. What are the main parts?
The outer layer is tough and white, called the sclera. The transparent part at the very front, where light enters, is the cornea.
The cornea bends the light.
Yes, it does the initial focusing. Then light passes through the pupil, the hole in the colored iris, and the lens, which fine-tunes the focus onto the back inner layer of the eye, the retina.
And the retina is where the light detection happens.
Exactly. The retina contains the photoreceptor cells, rods, which are highly sensitive to light and responsible for vision in dim light and peripheral vision, and cones, which detect color and provide sharp, detailed vision in bright light.
Rods for night, cones for color and detail.
Right. When light hits these cells, they generate electrical signals, which are processed by other neurons in the retina and then sent to the brain via the optic nerve. The brain then interprets these signals as images.
And there are common vision problems like needing glasses.
Yes. Myopia, or nearsightedness, means you can see near objects clearly, but distant objects are blurry, usually because the eyeball is too long or the lens focuses too strongly. Hyperopia, or farsightedness, is the opposite. Distant objects are clear, near ones are blurry.
Okay.
Presbyopia is the age-related difficulty focusing on near objects, as the lens becomes less flexible. Then there are eye diseases like glaucoma, where increased pressure inside the eye damages the optic nerve, and cataracts, where the lens becomes cloudy. Age-related macular degeneration, AMD, affects the central part of the retina, causing loss of a sharp central vision.
Lots can go wrong. Okay, last senses. Hearing and equilibrium, balance, both involve the ear, right?
Correct. The ear has 3 main regions. The external ear includes the visible part, the auricle or pinna, which funnels sound waves into the external auditory meatus, or ear canal.
Down to the eardrum.
Yes. The ear canal ends at the tympanic membrane, the eardrum. This marks the start of the middle ear. When sound waves hit the eardrum, it vibrates.
And those vibrations get passed on.
They do. The middle ear is an air-filled cavity containing the 3 tiniest bones in your body, the ossicles, the malleus, hammer, in the discus anvil, and stapes, stirrup. They form a chain connecting the eardrum to the inner ear.
Hammer, anvil, stirrup. Got it.
These tiny bones amplify the vibrations and transmit them to the inner ear.
Which is where the actual hearing happens.
Yes, and balance. The inner ear contains the cochlea, a snail-shaped structure filled with fluid. When the stapes vibrates against a membrane on the cochlea, it sets the fluid inside moving. This fluid movement stimulates tiny hair cells, which are the actual auditory receptors. They convert the mechanical vibrations into electrical signals sent to the brain via the auditory nerve.
So sound waves, eardrum ossicles, cochlear fluid, hair cells, brain.
That's the basic path for hearing.
What about ear infections? They seem common, especially in kids.
Middle ear infections, otitis media, are common because the middle ear is connected to the throat by the eustachian tube, and infections can travel up. Fluid can build up behind the eardrum. Sometimes, if it's bad or recurrent, a procedure called myringotomy might be done, where a tiny incision is made in the eardrum to drain the fluid, often with a small tube inserted.
Okay. And balance, where does that fit in?
Also in the inner ear, but not in the cochlea, there are 2 other structures, the vestibule and the semicircular canals. They contain fluid and sensory receptors that detect your head's position relative to gravity and any movement's linear acceleration, like moving forward or up-down, detected by the vestibule, and rotational movements, like nodding or shaking your head, detected by the semicircular canals. This information is sent to the brain, primarily the cerebellum, to help you maintain your equilibrium.
Wow. We've covered an enormous amount of ground, from cells all the way to sensory perception. You know, understanding these systems must make all that complex medical jargon a bit less scary.
It really does. Knowing the building blocks and how things are supposed to work gives you a huge advantage in decoding medical terms. Many terms are built from roots referring to specific body parts or functions we've discussed.
Can you give us a few examples based on what we've covered?
Sure. Let's take the integumentary system. We talked about skin cancer. A common type is basal cell carcinoma. Carcinoma means cancerous tumor, and basal cell refers to the specific layer of the epidermis where it starts.
Okay, that makes sense. What about the skeletal system?
Well, osteo refers to bone. So osteomalacia literally means softening malacia of the bone. Arthritis, arthro means joint, and schadesis means inflammation. So joint inflammation. Kyphosis refers to that hunchback curvature of the spine. Kypho means hump.
See, knowing the roots helps. Nervous system.
Cephalo or cerebro relate to the brain or head. So cerebrospinal fluid is the fluid liquor surrounding the brain
Oh, claro.
and spinal cord. Aphasia A means without, and phasia relates to speech. So difficulty speaking, often due to a brain lesion. Hemiplegia, hemi means half, and plegia means paralysis. Paralysis of one side of the body.
Okay, I'm getting this. Digestive system.
Gastro means stomach. So a gastrostomy is a surgical creation of an opening ostomy into the stomach, maybe for feeding. Chole relates to bile or the gallbladder. So cholangitis is inflammation of the bile ducts, angio. And a cholecystectomy is the surgical removal ligostomy of the gallbladder, polycys.
But this is actually empowering. How about cardiovascular, which we didn't cover in detail, but involves the heart and vessels?
Right. Cardio is heart. Carditis is inflammation of the heart. Angio or vasculo relates to vessels. Atherosclerosis describes the hardening sclerosis of arteries. Athero refers to the plaque. Aneurysmorrhaphy is the surgical suturing or repair of an aneurysm, a bulge in a vessel wall.
Urinary system.
Nephro or reno mean kidney. Litho means stone. So nephrolithotomy is a surgical incision to remove a kidney nephrostone. Incontinence means inability to control, in this case, urination.
Reproductive.
Dysis means painful or difficult. Menorrhea relates to menstruation. So dysmenorrhea is painful menstruation. Salpingo-oophorectomy is a mouthful, but salpingo refers to the fallopian tube, oophor to the ovary, and oophorectomy is removal. So removal of the tube and ovary.
And finally, endocrine.
We talked about the thyroid, hyperthyroidism. Hyper means excessive or overactive thyroid function. Pancreatitis, as we mentioned, inflammation of the pancreas.
That's fantastic. So knowing the systems, the parts, and a few common prefixes and suffixes really unlocks a lot of that terminology.
It absolutely does. It makes health information much more accessible and less intimidating. Hashtag outro.
Well, this has been an incredible journey through the human body. We've gone from the absolute basics, the molecules and cells, all the way up to complex systems like the nervous system, digestion, reproduction. It really is a deep dive.
It is. We hope distilling these core concepts from our sources helps you feel, more connected and informed about the amazing biological machine you inhabit every single day.
Absolutely. Gives you that shortcut to understanding yourself.
And maybe the biggest takeaway is just how interconnected everything is.
Yeah.
The nervous system controlling the muscles, the endocrine system influencing metabolism, the digestive system providing fuel, the urinary system cleaning up. It's this constant, intricate dance.
Yeah, a dance we're usually completely unaware of.
Exactly. So perhaps the thought to leave you with is this. Just take a moment sometime today. Feel your breath. Notice your heartbeat. Wiggle your fingers. Recognize the sheer amount of coordinated activity happening inside you right now, completely unseen, all working tirelessly to keep you balanced, healthy, and experiencing the world. It's a profound biological marvel, this constant balancing act within the intricate network that is your body.
A truly amazing machine indeed. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.